Another episode of The Real Results Show. We are live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. I'm your host, Evan Transu, aka Health Coach Ev, and we are here with Heather Gray today. Now, I always tell people, if it's relevant, you can find Heather's full story and the longer version where she gets into a lot more detail by going to the FDN Thrive podcast. If you're like listening to this, you're like, I want more, that's the place to go. She's got a great episode there. It's number 15, and it was re-uploaded, so it's like 2 above 16 or 17 or whatever, but just search Heather Gray and you'll find it. And today we're going to be talking about something that is very special to me, and I know super special to Heather as well. And it's kind of how these functional labs that we use can uncover hidden contributors to mental health. So first and foremost, Heather, thanks so much for being here with us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Coach Ev.
Yep. When did you graduate the FDN course? That's always my first question.
2013. Long time ago.
Awesome. Yeah. Doing FDN before it was cool. And I love it's always fun talking to people that graduated and went through the course in that range. They are like much better masters at the fundamentals because there's so much fancy stuff thrown around now online, but like FDN fundamentally works because we are really good at the basics. So I want to dive more into this topic and what it means to you. Give us a little background on your story, like why mental health? Were these things that you were dealing with yourself or someone in your family?
Oh, absolutely. I was bit by a tick when I was 13 and started showing symptoms the first time when I was 15, when I ended up in the psych ward the first time for a suicide attempt. And then again at the age of 18, and then probably should have ended up there a few more times over the past 20 years. But I'm a pretty good talker, and I knew what to say and how to get myself out of that situation, because I kind of knew, especially in the last becoming an FDN, I kind of knew that going to the hospital necessarily wasn't going to be my best bet. They're not, they might be able to throw some Band-Aids on something temporarily, numb me, get me out of crisis, right? But I knew that I had to figure out what was going on at the base level if I was ever going to get better.
Sure. And were we talking about things like, I'm guessing it's the whole gambit, like anxiety, depression, those types of things, or even more severe than that? Because ending up obviously in those places, and I've heard that so much because of people not knowing what's actually going on functionally in their body. And it's so sad to me. But yeah, what were some of like the specifics going on there for those listening?
Oh man. So I was diagnosed bipolar. I was diagnosed, they put me on tranquilizers, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and all of them, especially if anybody knows anything with Lyme disease, most people with Lyme disease actually react opposite of what a lot of those medications were intended to do. So a lot of times I was just a drugged up zombie, barely numb, moving through life. And I kind of knew, my really low lows were horrible, but this not feeling anything at all was no way to live either.
Sure.
So it was very vacillating mood swings. Extreme rage and anger. I've been dealing with that for a long time. I remember being in an anger management class back when I was like 13 years old. Depression, a lot of anxiety. The whole gamut.
I appreciate, again, I said this in the beginning, but seriously, I'd like to reiterate, I appreciate anyone that shares the mental health side of things. This is tough. This is never easy. It's like, it's not that it's easy really to share like, oh, I have an autoimmune disease or cancer, but there's no stigma around having like a cancer anymore or autoimmunity or whatever. I've never seen that, at least. Whereas the stuff with the mental health, yeah, it is tough. And it's even tougher to describe to people how these mental health conditions, when they're untreated or not being treated properly, can lead to us doing things that we regret. What you just said about the anger, that was me. I'm like a nice dude. I'm not confrontational. I was getting into fights all the time, but I was inflamed. I was sick, right? Mm-hmm. And with the Lyme disease, you talked about getting bit by a tick at 13. What you didn't mention yet, because obviously we talked about this on the podcast, so I know it, is you didn't get diagnosed with like chronic Lyme for many, many years after that though, right?
Yeah, not till 8 years ago.
Wow. So during that time, what's like going on? Like you're taking these various medications. Is anything helping even a little bit? Like, did the mental health issues get better during those times, or were they just something you dealt with for decades?
I want to go back just one second, because when you were talking about the stigma, so even the stigma being in the natural health realm, I feel like
Yes.
that it's even bigger, right? Because I had put something recently out on Facebook on how I was drowning again. And then I found some new tools to kind of help shed some light. And I got a lot of flack for that. And I even posted it out there that, hey, a lot of people are afraid to talk like this because of what their job might do or what their family might do. And I put myself out there anyway, and it did end up biting me in the butt.
Wow.
So, the stigma attached, I think, can be even more so, because a lot of folks look at us health folks as that we're supposed to have it all together and have all the answers. Well, that's, partially right. We're still in our own journey, right? And,
Yeah.
and as long as I'm continuing to go in my journey, I think that shouldn't be used against me. You know what I mean? I think it's when folks kind of sit and spin and they stay in there and they stay the victim and they stay in their sickness, but anybody who knows me knows I'm actively always looking for answers. And I just went back to FDN. I went back to the basics because I knew something was up, that I wasn't figuring it out. I was putting Band-Aids on symptoms again. I was, and now, and that I've gotten those lab results back. And now that I'm walking the walk again, my brain I can't get over how beautiful it is. Instead of staying up late at night, that was kind of one of my tells when I knew I was depressed, is I wouldn't want to go to bed. I'd stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning watching TV, numbing out, because if I went to bed, then I'd have to get up the next morning, and start the whole damn day all over again. Today, now I go to bed at 9:30 and I'm excited about it.
FDN life, baby. FDN life.
I have my blue blocking glasses on and I'm excited to get to bed, and because I'm lit up again, because I'm working again. I'm not inflamed. I'm not angry. I'm not sad. I'm not at the cause of my emotions. There's still a little bit more tweaking left to do, and I'm going to do this other course that's supposed to help retrain the limbic system, which I heard about from Ryan from FDN, because he put it beautifully. He said, a lot of times when you have a chronic trauma, right, it's like the fire's been put out, but the alarm bells have stayed on. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what's going on. My brain is still shouting alarm, 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 even though the fire's done, the fire's put out. So, things that I tried in the past, like I said, no natural, no medication prescription ever really worked for maybe a month or so at a time. And then I would switch to naturopathy, and I would try supplements, and I would try herbs, which would only get me 25% better, because I still wasn't looking at the whole picture. What's causing the inflammation? What's causing my brain? We all know as FDNs, the brain and the gut connection, right? I'm also celiac.
Okay.
So when my gut is trashed and not working and inflamed, do you think anything I take from my brain is going to work? Absolutely not. Not at all. So it like I said, it took coming back to basics again to finally find balance.
There's so many great things there. And I'm glad we did a podcast together, because immediately I'm like, all right, well, this could go for way longer than the 25 minutes that we do this. But one thing that I got to touch on is you bringing up the stigma around the natural health stuff, because when Western medicine, and I'm not condemning it, this happens in both spaces, they mess up all the time. What percentage of people actually feel better off antidepressants? And no one judges that. But yeah, we're not perfect. I've resolved my anxiety 90%, but since it's not 100, that didn't work. Or that's quackery, that's silly. I mean, seriously, what a great point.
Dude, don't even get me started. My mom was a nurse for years, and I would go visit her at work and stand outside the nurse's station with them smoking, eating fast food, drinking sodas, these overweight doctors. Like, it blows my brain. But yeah, for some reason, that unless, like I said, I was really shocked at some of the backlash I got for that post, because one, they saw it as a cry for help. And I'm like, no, this is supposed to be a beacon of light. This is supposed to give people hope that, yes, I was in this dark, horrible, disgusting place. And this is what helped pull me out. I was trying to throw a lifeline to others, but it is what it is. And, everything happens for a reason, and I'm on a different path now, and it's quite beautiful. And so I'm grateful. But that's part of the reason why I talk the way that I do so openly on Facebook, on Instagram. It's so we can get the stigma gone, because people aren't going to get better if they're feeling shamed because their brain's not working right, because their moods have hijacked themselves once again, and they've made an ass out of themselves at the company party, or, you know, whatever.
Yes. And guys, for those that are just tuning in, you can drop the word lab below, because we're talking all today about how lab tests can uncover hidden contributors to mental health. And we are always hooking people up on the Real Results Show, always sending freebies. And so we'll send you our FDN Thrive survey. And this is something that can be used to kind of find hidden healing opportunities to hopefully contribute to you feeling better mentally as well. So we're talking to Heather Gray. And Heather, I'd love to transition now into some of the things that you did find on these labs, because again, you're originally going through FDN, many years ago at this point. And what were some of the things that you found that were just like, wow, no one's ever talked to me about this before, that did end up helping your mental health?
Everything, all of it, the whole thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Your last episode was on food sensitivities, and that was huge. You know, the minute I found out, also like recently, I was trying to do a ketogenic diet because I needed to lose some weight for COVID and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, I tested for fast oxidizer. And so fast oxidizer and keto go pretty hand in hand. You know, it's high fat,
Sure.
high protein, low carb. So I did a food, not only did I not lose weight, but I gained weight, stressed out, hungry all the time, even more inflamed. So I'm like, all right, back to basics. Did the food sensitivity test, found out that I was reacting to almonds, coconut, and olives. What are like the three things that keto is kind of like based on?
Yeah. Good point.
Right?
Good point.
Almonds, coconut, and olives. You know, and then I redid a hair tissue mineral analysis test, and it shows that I'm a slow oxidizer. So I am not supposed to be eating all that fat and all that animal protein. So there's no wonder I was so inflamed. And whatever is going on with my body, whatever's going on in my gut, it's also going to show reflected in my brain, because it's all connected.
Yes. Yeah, wonderfully said. And I've been fortunate enough that, every American and their brother deals with the weight stuff. I've always been like underweight. And so it took me forever to make the connection that what I was putting into my mouth was actually affecting my brain. And sure enough, Heather, I've been on like over 20 courses of antibiotics in my life. And we now know one single course, it raises your chance of anxiety in the next year by like 12%. So what happens when you give a kid like 20 courses? And I needed them, at that time, because I didn't know the functional side of things, obviously, right? And so it's just like, yeah, this gut-brain connection, this is real, and we just keep finding more and more about this. Now, it was, just to go back for a second, the celiac stuff and the Lyme's, this was all discovered because of originally getting into FDN, or am I incorrect with that? I might be remembering incorrectly.
No, I was just diagnosed maybe 2 years with celiac before getting into FDN, because my kid was diagnosed at the age of 2 with celiac, and he's now 17. And then Lyme, I was diagnosed probably 6 months to a year before I found FDN. And it was because, the doctors were throwing napalm at the critters, but not doing anything to support my body. And I thought I was going to die. And heard Reed Davis speak with Sean Croxton on Underground Wellness about, all the different systems that FDN supports and what we look for. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the answer. It's not the critters. That's what I love so much about it. And it took a while, even still, to get my brain on track with, well, I need to be a doctor. I need to be a nurse. I need to do this. I need to do that. No. It was FDN, flat out. Nice. Just the main basic FDN is why I'm doing as well as I am doing now. Not something fancy, not something specialized, just FDN.
It's the same truth for me. I had gotten into some natural things and I was able to manage mental health a little better, but it was FDN and the labs that finally got everything solidified. And the reason I brought up the celiac thing is because in the beginning, I said, you are not the only person I know that has gone through, like, even ending up in a hospital because of mental health conditions that were not being addressed properly. And sure enough, Heather, one of those other people was a celiac patient. And you said it so well. If you're not getting the nutrients, how are you supposed to produce neurotransmitters or whatever? And so she's getting diagnosed with all these other things, and no one finds the celiacs.
Yeah. Now, my kid, who's severe celiac, like projectile vomits within a half an hour of eating something with wheat in it, he got some cross reaction he's been living with this his whole life, and I'm still kind of shocked. He's 17, I guess, teenager, and I just want to shake him. But he's working at a fast food joint, and he got some cross-contamination, and it was just light enough where it was just causing some discomfort, but not full-on symptoms. But we figured out what it was, and I told him, hey, if you lose your mind in the next couple weeks to a month, don't get thinking your depression's back. Don't think it's your anxiety's out of blown. I said, you trashed your gut. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, God, Mom, I'm losing my mind. He's like, I totally have been losing it the last couple of days. How did you know? I'm like, I've been telling this your whole life. Like, the connection is very real.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I think, like, I got a young cousin that, and she's very young, like 12, 13, and she knows she has to be gluten-free because, like, it puffs up her cheeks, but she doesn't get, and why would she? That's going to affect him for weeks, especially someone with celiac. I mean, we know the immune response can actually be elevated slightly for months. Right. And so it's just not a fair world. I mean, I'm gluten sensitive, but for people like you and your son that are celiac, it's not fair yet. That people, like, he's trying to work a job, and of course he's going to get exposed there eventually, you think,
Right. Well, what's not fair is the truth in labeling, or the lack thereof. The fact that 30% of even gluten-free foods contain gluten. I just ran a wheat zoomer just out of curiosity because I am strict and have been strict for a long time. Guess what's showing up on it?
Oh, no.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can't wait to have my talk with Whitney on, in about a week over the zoomer, but it also showed something on the neural zoomer that's crossing my blood-brain barrier, so yeah, you talked about the corn with your last guest, corn came up really high, and being part Mexican, like, that one breaks my heart. Like, okay. I'm like, my corn tortillas, my corn chips, my corn tamales, like, everything is corn. Like, I gave up wheat happily, but corn kind of hurts just a wee bit. I'm sad over that one.
Right. And well, I mean, and that does stink, because how often too do these gluten-free products, what do they just replace it with? Either like grains or corn. And so many people that are long-term gluten sensitive or celiac are also going to react to those things. So it's like a trade-off of one for the other. Now, I know that this is newer for you, because at one point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were taking clients, and then you're back to this now, right? Like, you're doing your own biz again?
I am. I started up April Fools. So I've been in business 1 month now. I've signed up 4 clients so far.
Nice.
No, I'm killing it. It's
all right.
I needed to get back to the basics, and once I did, everything is clicking. Everything is clicking.
Okay. Awesome. That is okay. No excuses, guys. 4 in 1 month, just starting back up again. That's pretty good. I like that. And so I'm sure, I mean, we always get quick wins with FDN. That's great. I'm sure there's no major client successes like we normally talk about, but I am curious. I mean, who is your ideal client if people are watching this and they've related to some of the things that you've gone through? Like, who's the person you want to work with and help?
I've been working with Jen Maleka on honing in my elevator speech. Her business course is so amazing. But it's the tired, moody, and in pain, right? Because I want to work with those folks. Not that I'm like trained in some sort of therapy or a licensed therapist or anything along those lines, but I want to help with the gut brain stuff. I want to look in the places that other people haven't, and that's been probably one of the biggest things that's plagued me my whole life, of being labeled as difficult, labeled as flaky, labeled as angry, labeled as, you name it, fill in the blank, when none of those are actually the truth on who I am inside. Yeah. But that's, they talk about, there's 2 different pathways that a response can hit. And usually when you're stuck in fight or flight, it takes that lower response that's faster. And so the whole, count to 10 or take a breather or do other things that would work for people who are healthy don't work for me. So when I would tell them, there's literally, there's nothing, there's no bandwidth. There's something happens, I react, right? And I feel hijacked. I felt hijacked by my brain almost my whole life. And so that's really the people who are in chronic pain and the people who are chronically moody and angry. Those are the people I want to give their life back to, because it's just no way to go through life.
That's beautiful, especially as someone who not only has been through that personally, but have seen it again, I guess still personally, just not me being the individual dealing with it, right? And it is the only good thing, I guess, and I'm sure you'd agree about people like us going through it is, and this is why it's fun to hear that that's who you want to work with, because it creates a level of empathy that is pretty much impossible to replicate unless you know exactly what that person's talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because you just like, yeah, I like when you're saying this, okay, I get that. And it's scary when it's stuff that, like, especially as a kid, a late teenager, I was just getting in fights all the time. And I got in a lot of trouble for some of these. And it's not that I'm justifying it, but I swear on my life, Evan Transu in that moment did not choose to start that physical altercation. I got no business fighting. You know, like, I'm not out of here trying to do that. So there's multiple reasons why I'm not pursuing these altercations, right? And it's impossible to explain that to someone who hasn't felt that way, where it's just like, I don't know why I'm doing this, and I have so much regret afterwards. So I love that you're helping those types of people, because they're going to be like, wow, it's nice to have someone that gets me, right?
I always went into some sort of it was a disassociative thing where I could like see myself out of body experience, looking down at myself and my mouth going crazy. And I'm going, Heather, what are you doing? Heather, what are you doing? Heather, why are you doing that? And there was nothing that could stop me until I was done. And then I usually felt horrible, which then kept me in this cycle of guilt and shame. And that's how I want to help people get off that roller coaster.
Well, also, my obvious question then is, like, if someone's out there listening and they're like, okay, this is so cool to have someone that gets me, and you don't need to feel ashamed or embarrassed to reach out to Heather because she knows what it's like. Where can people find you, Heather, if they're like, yeah, I want to be number 5 or number 6 or number 7 for the clients?
Discovering Health FDN on Facebook, or discoveringhealthfdn.com is my email. Discovering Health FDN website, pretty easy.
Cool. Well, if she's doing 4 in the first month, folks, you guys better get on her list quick, because that fills up, and we spend on clients, We got a few minutes left. Normally I finish with that question, but I'd like to definitely use our whole time here, especially for such an important topic. I know that, and I agree with when you said everything in FDN was useful. I mean, that is the absolute truth. Did you find by any chance like a specific one thing that was just essential? Maybe it was a lab test or not, but like something that really was significant, more so than anything else? Or was it really just kind of all put together in such a way that you would label it as everything still?
Coffee enemas.
Oh God. Haven't ventured there yet.
Oh my gosh, they're the best things ever. My liver, when I had it tested, was so congested because of the Lyme and the Candida poo and Blastocystis hominis poo. They say all that bug stuff will congest your liver, and also feeling so toxic all the time and angry, that's liver, right? Mm-hmm. Emotions tied, that's liver. So yeah, coffee enemas, and I've been doing them regularly, not as frequent as I used to. When you're first starting the program, we suggest, 3 to 4 times a week, and life-changing. My ex-husband used to get so embarrassed. We'd go out into like picnics, and I'm talking to mixed company, and I'm, and they're like somewhat interested. They're like, tell me more. And he's like scritching down in his chair, trying to disappear because he's embarrassed by his wife talking about coffee enemas.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly there might be a mixed bag of emotions if you bring that up to someone who's never heard it, but I don't know how you couldn't not be interested. I mean, that is intriguing, even to an FDN. I never ventured there. That's probably the one thing I didn't do from the course. But you know what? As my girlfriend's finishing up, she's like, she wants to do these things, and she's pushing me to do it because I've actually heard really great things about that type of stuff. So I'm curious. I've never heard it with the mental side. So how powerful is that for those listening? This person just shared a lot of her deep stuff with us and the things that she's been through, and that was one of the most important things. I would have never guessed that, so that's kind of cool. It just become like more routine once you do these a few times, and it's not like, I feel like those initial ones are awkward at heart.
Oh, absolutely. Like some of the horror stories I could tell, but that's for another episode. But yeah,
fair enough. And you're saved by the bell because we're almost right at 25 minutes. So just real quick again, because we didn't finish with it like we normally do. Can you just list your website one more time for us, please, so people can find it?
DiscoveringHealthFDN.com.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Well, you've been tuned in to another episode of The Real Results Show. We are live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST, and we're interviewing real practitioners who have real results for themselves and their clients. It sounds like Heather's going to be killing it, so I hope that you guys reach out to her if you find that her message, that was something that you related to today. And we've been talking all about how lab tests can uncover hidden contributors to mental health. I've been trained to Health Coach Ev. Heather Gray is the guest. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.